In the late 1990s, a man named Daniel decided to leave his life in Colorado behind and start fresh in a small town called Willow Creek, Georgia. He loved it so much that he convinced his younger brother, Evan, to make the move too. Evan, looking for a place with a bit of character, found the perfect spot. A classic old farmhouse, built way back in the late 1800s. It was picturesque, nestled between tall, whispering pine trees and a quiet gravel road. From the outside, it was the definition of southern charm. Wide white porch, a welcoming rocking chair, and a neatly kept yard. It looked like the kind of place where you'd want to raise a family. But as Daniel would later recall on the podcast Voices in the Dark, the idyllic image shattered the moment he set foot inside. The instant he crossed the threshold, a primal sense of dread washed over him. Every single hair on his neck stood on end. His stomach felt like it had dropped to the floor. The air was thick, heavy, and strangely alive. He described it as feeling like the house itself was breathing, its old wooden lungs slowly expanding and contracting around him. He tried to shake it off, chalking it up to nerves or the unfamiliarity of an old building. He was there to help his brother, after all. So, he grabbed a box of Evan's belongings and headed toward one of the bedrooms to start unpacking. And that's when he heard it. It started as a faint murmur, but quickly grew into something undeniable. It was the sound of a whispering argument, filled with anger and a harsh, grating tone. The sound seemed to be coming from somewhere directly above his head. He glanced up at the ceiling, confused. It wasn't coming from the attic, and it wasn't coming from down the hallway. It was just there, hovering in the air near the ceiling, like two invisible figures were locked in a heated dispute. He described it as two distinct voices, speaking rapidly, their words filled with venom. They were whispering, as if they were trying to be secretive, but at the same time, there was an unnerving sense that they didn't care if he heard them or not. Pure, cold fear shot through him. Daniel dropped the box and bolted out of the room, his heart pounding in his chest. He found Evan in the living room, still casually unpacking. "Did you feel that? Did you hear that?" Daniel asked, his voice trembling slightly. He tried to explain the chilling sensation, the angry whispers. Evan paused, a thoughtful look on his face. He admitted that the house did feel a little strange, but he quickly brushed it off. "It's an old house, man. They make weird noises. We'll be fine," he insisted, trying to reassure his brother, and maybe himself. But Daniel was having none of it. The feeling of malevolence was too strong, too real to be ignored. He looked his brother dead in the eye and shook his head firmly. "You might be good," he said, his voice low and serious. "I am not. I'm leaving right now, and I am not coming back." And he meant it. He walked out of that house and never returned. But Evan, with his wife and young daughter, decided to stay. They were determined to make this charming old farmhouse their home. Soon after they settled in, however, the house began to reveal its true nature. The strangeness that Evan had initially dismissed started to escalate. It began with small, unsettling occurrences. A set of keys left on the kitchen counter would inexplicably appear on the living room mantel. A book left on a nightstand would be found lying open on the floor. Then, the doors started acting up. They would creak open on their own, even when they had been securely shut. Late at night, when the entire family was sound asleep in their beds, they would be woken by the distinct sound of footsteps creaking across the upstairs hallway floorboards. They would check, of course, only to find the hallway empty, silent, and still. The atmosphere in the house grew heavier with each passing week. The family felt like they were constantly being watched by unseen eyes. The feeling of not being alone was palpable. Evan tried to find logical explanations for everything. Old pipes, drafts, the house settling. But deep down, a seed of fear had been planted, and it was beginning to grow. Then came the incident that turned their unease into sheer terror. An event that would force them to confront the reality of what they were living with. One sunny afternoon, a frantic 911 call was made. Evan's 4-year-old daughter, Mia, had been found wandering alone on the busy, dangerous road that ran past their property. She was several hundred yards from the farmhouse, walking calmly, almost dreamily. What was most chilling to the neighbors who found her was that she was holding her small hand up in the air, fingers gently curled, as if she were holding hands with an invisible companion. Within minutes, the scene was swarming with police, concerned neighbors, and eventually, Child Protective Services. Everyone was trying to understand how a little girl could have gotten out of the house by herself and wandered so far. The front door of the farmhouse was old and incredibly heavy. It was a struggle even for an adult to pull it open. There was no way a 4-year-old child could have managed it on her own. When the authorities gently questioned Mia, asking her how she got outside, her response sent a shiver down everyone's spine. She looked up at them, her expression happy and completely innocent, and explained, "I went for a walk with the old woman who lives in our house." An icy silence fell over the group. The officers exchanged confused glances. Evan and his wife felt their blood run cold. Mia continued, her voice filled with childlike honesty. "The old lady opened the door for me," she said brightly. "We petted her dog first. He was a nice doggy. Then she said we should go outside for a walk." Her story was too detailed, too genuine for Evan to dismiss as a child's fantasy. The way she described it was so matter-of-fact. He and his wife pressed her for more details. Who was this old woman? What did she look like? Mia's descriptions were vague, as a child's would be, but she was insistent. There was an old woman, and she was her friend. Evan and the police immediately started asking around the small community of Willow Creek. They showed Mia's description to neighbors, the postman, anyone who might have seen something, but no one had ever seen an elderly woman matching that description, let alone one with a dog, anywhere near the farmhouse. The most unnerving part was the history of the property itself. The farmhouse had stood empty for decades before Evan and his family had rented it. It was a forgotten relic, a place people drove by without a second thought. There was no old woman. There was no dog. There was only the house. The incident with Mia was the final, terrifying straw. The possibility that some unseen entity had not only interacted with their daughter, but had actively led her out of the house and into a life-threatening situation was a horror they couldn't live with. The whispers, the footsteps, the moving objects, they were all warnings. This was an undeniable escalation. The house wasn't just strange, it was dangerous. Within a week, Evan and his family packed up every single one of their belongings, leaving the charming old farmhouse behind. They left Willow Creek entirely, and just like Daniel, they never, ever stepped foot in that house again, leaving it to its secrets, its whispers, and the old woman who still lives inside. Thanks for watching. If you have a story you'd like to share, let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more chilling dailies.